Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to News Toast. And typically, you don't necessarily think about Xbox and PlayStation as being friends, per se. I mean, we're talking about one of, if not the biggest gaming rivalry of all time. And I have to say, Sony has been very cutthroat over the years. Historically, they have done everything in their power to stomp out Xbox. But today, they actually revealed a bit of a partnership together. Yeah, they're actually teaming up for a new console SKU. So we're going to get all of that today, as well as a Switch 2 leak, which has some fans up in arms. First, though, I do want to thank my supporters on Patreon and on YouTube memberships. Thank you just so much for what you do. I truly do appreciate each and every one of you. Let's go get right into things, though, starting off with the Summer Game Fest and at least one showing that you should expect to be there. It's actually kind of crazy to think that it's only a little over a week away, and we really haven't heard much about the Summer Game Fest, or really the Xbox Showcase for that matter. Now, hopefully that's a good sign that we're going to have lots of surprises in store. Let's cross our fingers for that. But usually there's definitely a lot of rumors and leaks by this point. But whatever the case may be, Hideo Kojima will debut at the Summer Game Fest once again. Him and Jeff Keighley are good pals after all, so this really falls into his wheelhouse of game announcements and how he likes to do his reveals. Now, they haven't disclosed which game will be there, though. Technically, it could be OD, his horror game published by Xbox. But I'd say the safer bet here is Death Stranding 2. After all, we'll be releasing next month on June 26th, so, a big showing at a popular showcase like this before it launches makes a lot of sense. Either way, though, we can start to build some hype for the E3-esque season. Now, speaking of hype, we also have the Switch 2 launch next week on June 5th. Cannot wait for that. And now we can also add yet another launch title for it. This is for Fantasy Life I, which has been blowing up this past week on other platforms. To some surprise, it's already sold more than 500,000 units with very little media coverage for that matter. And that could accelerate even more with its Switch 2 June 5th debut. Now, if you've already purchased the Switch 1 version, no worries. They are offering an upgrade path. Now, it's not free, but it's very affordable compared to some of the other upgrades on the market. It'll run you $2.59, which will net you enhanced visuals, better frame rate, and improved load times. They have a few comparison shots on their websites, which you can see here. The Switch 2 version looks significantly better with its better textures and resolution. So, this very well might be one of the best ways to play Fantasy Life I. The previous game was a 3DS exclusive after all, so it's a series that feels right at home on a Nintendo handheld. In fact, I think this might be one of the better launch day pickups for the Switch 2 just period, especially if you like games like Animal Crossing, but maybe you prefer a little bit more action in your games. My only thing about this release, though, is that there's no Switch 2 physical version, which has, kind of been a theme for the Switch 2. However, if you do want a physical edition, you can at least pick up the Switch 1 version, which you can import from PlayAsia. It's the Japanese version, but it does have English language included, and then you can just simply upgrade it to the Switch 2 version for, again, $2.59. Now, another game that I think is going to feel right at home on the Switch 2 is the upcoming Dragon Quest 1 and 2 HD 2D remake compilation. Well, Square Enix just confirmed its release date for October 30th. So there you go. Go ahead and mark your calendars. It'll be completely multi-platform, which means the Switch 1, Switch 2, PS5, PC, and yes, even the Xbox Series. Square Enix has really made it their mission to be a more multi-platform company, as we're seeing here. But once again, speaking of the Switch 2, it's worth noting that its physical version will be a game keycard. Yeah, that's extremely unfortunate for fans who prefer true physical copies. Now, maybe you can still get the Switch 1 version and just upgrade it to the Switch 2 edition, but currently, we don't have all of that information on hand. For that matter, we still don't know if last year's Dragon Quest III HD will get a Switch 2 upgrade, and that is a game that had some performance issues, so I'm crossing my fingers we will get that as well. Okay, so let's go shift gears here and talk about PlayStation and maybe a somewhat surprising partnership with Microsoft. Yeah, so what's happening here is that Sony just announced their yearly Days of Play promotion, which is where they discount a lot of their stuff directly on PlayStation and also at participating retailers. Now, this will run from May 28th all the way to June 11th, and they have some great discounts on offer. If you want to buy into PlayStation Plus, you can save up to 33% depending on the tier that you want to buy into. There's also a ton of games that'll be on discount. It's a great way to buy into PlayStation games. But the big highlight, and I think especially this year, given the circumstances, comes from the hardware side of things. In a year with conversation about price increases, Sony is going to offer a temporary discount for various consoles, accessories, the PSVR 2, and even the PlayStation 5 Pro for the first time ever. Both it and the PSVR 2 will receive a $50 discount, and I mean, truthfully, just seeing how this generation has played out thus far, this might actually be the cheapest that we see these consoles, unfortunately, all generation long. Now, I hope that's not the case, but that's kind of been the trend up to this point. It's been a very weird, just a bizarre generation where prices have gone up rather than down over time, which, in fact, was a major story just a few weeks back when Xbox raised the price for their own consoles across the board quite significantly, I might add. And that right there is what makes today's story, I'd say, even more fascinating. Because here we have Xbox, and they raised the prices for their consoles. And you can even argue that was prematurely done. Of course, they're blaming market conditions, which has been very fluid. And in fact, those market conditions have actually drastically changed for the better since that announcement. That's neither here nor there. But today, one of the deals that Sony revealed is actually in partnership with Microsoft, out of all companies. Yeah, let's just go and check this out because they revealed a Call of Duty Black Ops 6 bundle starting at $400, depending on whether or not you want the physical or digital only console. I mean, that is an incredible deal in today's market. I mean, let me just kind of put it this way. Xbox is trying to sell the Series X for $600. But meanwhile, they're helping Sony sell the PlayStation 5, a comparable console, for as low as $400, which includes their biggest IP and a franchise that Microsoft and Sony fought tooth and nail about in court. I mean, the irony in all of that and the aftermath that we're seeing here is, I'd say kind of amusing depending on how you want to look at this. But I think this also says a lot about Xbox's strategy. Yes, they have their own consoles, and they will continue to make their own consoles next generation. They've already confirmed that, which I think could be enticing for a specific audience if the rumors are true about it being a PC hybrid that can also play Steam games. That could be big. But their strategy doesn't necessarily seem to solely rely on their console business like it used to. They truly believe that everything is an Xbox now, and they don't mind partnering up with Nintendo and PlayStation, even when it might not necessarily be the best look for their own consoles. Let me know what you all think about this situation, though. Do you think Xbox is being smart, or do you think that they're making a mistake? Now, one last thing before we go, the Switch 2 has officially leaked out. There's been at least 2 reports today that 2 Switch 2 units have surfaced in the wild. Now, there was actually an unboxing of one unit which was actually copyrighted and taken down at least once that I know of, so I would not be posting that video on my channel. You, however, can easily find it online if you want. Once something's on the internet, it's kind of hard to just scratch all traces of it, but the big story that came from all of this is the fact that Nintendo took certain countermeasures just in case this were to happen, which, I mean, let's be honest about it. This was always inevitable. As soon as it was revealed that Switch 2 units were already in stores, we've seen those images online. As soon as I saw that, I knew it was only a matter of time before somebody got their hands on one. But like I said, Nintendo prepared for this exact situation, though in maybe a somewhat controversial way. It really kind of depends on how you look at this. So what they did is that they made the Switch 2 unplayable until it gets its day one update. You can read Wario64's post about this here, which says, another person shared with me that they have a Nintendo Switch 2 as well. I have no permission to post pics, but can share that when they try to boot a Switch 1 game, a message prompts, please connect to the internet and update your system. Needs update to boot a game. Now, there's really two lines of thinking to this. Some people are applauding Nintendo for their countermeasure against this, because the people obtaining the Switch 2 early are likely, getting them through, we'll just kind of say in a shady way. It's doubtful that they're getting it from their uncle that works from Nintendo. That's always the easy excuse to make. But yeah, then there's also that other line of thinking that, this could be a nuisance for preservation in the future. Let's just kind of hypothetically say that in 20 years from now, somebody decided to pick up a Switch 2 and it's been factory reset. Well, in that situation, unless Nintendo servers are still active, they might not be able to do that, or at least if it's a launch unit. Now, it is important to keep in mind here that future Switch 2 units will likely launch with a more recent updated version, so this likely won't impact the entire generation of Switch 2 units, but it is a somewhat divisive decision for, again, at least the launch units. Let me know what you all think about this, though. Do you agree with Nintendo taking this countermeasure, or do you think that this is a bad decision? Anyways, though, that's going to be it for this episode, but until next time, make sure to subscribe, ring that bell, and peace out.